All right, let's get started. Hey everyone, my name is Sudheendra Chilappagari, and I'm a product manager here at Segment. Today, I'm extremely thrilled to be talking about a topic, one of my favorite topics, which is how do you use customer data as a company to innovate at scale? Before I jump into the talk, I wanted to spend 2 minutes talking about Segment and giving you a short introduction about what we do. If you're a modern business today, you probably might have heard of the term CDP or a customer data platform. Segment is one of the leading customer data platforms that helps companies like yours collect all your customer data from various different sources, be it your website, your mobile app, your backend data, like your server side data, and data that's sitting in your cloud applications, be it your Salesforce CRM, your billing systems like Stripe, and etc., help you collect all this customer data and bring it to one place, the Segment platform, and synthesize this customer data to build a deep understanding of your customers and ultimately leverage that data into various different tools, be it your advertising tools like Google, Facebook, or an analytics tool like Amplitude or a Mixpanel, and an email marketing tool, and 300 different tools. And or you can send that data into your data warehouse to leverage this data to ultimately achieve your end use cases and drive business growth. Segment is a 10-year-old company, and during this 10 years, we have seen some amazing growth. We have had early stage startups, and we have till Fortune 500 companies adopt our software to drive their growth. We power about 20,000 customers. We have about 80,000 websites which are using Segment platform. And overall, we have tracked over 5.8 billion end user data in the last 10 years. And during this journey, we have met thousands of customers and heard all their bad data problems. Companies still today struggle with bad data, and struggling with bad data is like flying blind. You really don't know who your customers are, which business you are in when you're flying blind. You're just disconnects bad data just disconnects you from your customers and even your business, making it impossible to make good decisions and further grow your business. On the other hand, having access to great data is like having access to GPS for growth. That's what separates great data separates competition, you from your competition, and helps you grow faster than your competition, helps you understand your customers better, helps you build better products, help you service your customers better, and ultimately leverage this great data to fuel your growth. What does great data really look like? What does a data driven innovation really look like? I'm going to take an example of Glossier. Glossier is one of the fastest growing direct to consumer internet startups that makes and sells makeup products to millions of millennials online. And for Glossier, just like any other company, they are always looking for innovative ways to grow their business, improve the conversion rates on their website, and drive their growth. And what Glossier does is Glossier uses something like Segment to deeply understand their customers across all their sources. And for Glossier, the two big sources happen to be their online store, which is glossier.com, and the second is Into the Glass, which happens to be their highly trafficked blog posts where they talk about makeup products, beauty products, reviews, and stuff like that. So what Glossier did is Glossier ran an analysis to mix and match customer data across their uh, website, which is their e-commerce store, and their blog. And they realized that customers who browsed both their blog, like articles on their blog or videos on their blog, and then who are on top on who are visiting their website, their e-commerce store, those customers are 40% more likely to purchase than people who just browse Glossier.com website straight from Google or directly. So this insight led to a change in their email and marketing strategy. So Glossier started building email campaigns and started optimizing their website to strongly encourage users to visit both their sites. And in a matter of time, this ultimately led to an increase in revenue. So, a deep insight that customers who browse both their blog and website are 40% more likely to purchase has really made a huge impact in terms of Glossier driving growth. And ultimately, that's what innovation using data at scale means, right? Now, many companies want to be like Glossier, but they often run into challenges. They often run into challenges when it comes to using data to drive growth. And today's talk, I wanted to touch upon some of these common challenges that companies face when it comes to using data to drive growth, and how companies can really overcome these challenges and create a strong foundation of customer data that ultimately fuels their growth. One of the first challenge when it comes to having a strong foundation of data is not having a common language and definition of what customer data means. So let's take an example. And I'm sure this probably would have happened multiple times in your day-to-day lives. You're sitting in a cross-functional meeting where you have your analyst presenting some numbers, you have your marketer sitting next to you, you have your product manager sitting next to you, and various different folks from across the org sitting next to you. And your analyst pops up this chart saying, hey, we have reached 20,000 active users, monthly active users to be precise. And instead of celebrating that number, your marketer pops a very valid question. And that's, hey, listen, my team still told me in our last weekly meeting that we already crossed 35,000 monthly users. What do you mean by 20,000 monthly active users? And then that raises a bunch of questions in the room. And then your product manager is asking the relevant question, which is, what does an active user really mean? Is that a user who logged into your app? Or is that a user who performed probably like a very important, meaningful action, such as adding a product to your cart or browsing a product, something like that? So this is just like a one example of not having a common language or a definition about customers and customer data. Now, this problem might appear a very tiny problem on the surface, but very quickly ends up becoming a deep-rooted issue across the org. Because as more and more teams start relying on customer data, not having a common language and definition is just brutal. The second problem is not having single view of customers. Most companies end up building a rat's nest of integrations with various different tools. Now that results in a lot of data, but just not usable data. Now this happens because most of the times companies end up taking a tool by tool, team by team, channel by channel approach towards building these integrations instead of taking a customer first approach towards building these integrations. Now, when you do that, your engineers are spending a lot of time building these integrations, wasting a lot of time instead of focusing on solving your core customer problems. Now, not only that, they have built all these integrations, you still have a fragmented and an incomplete view of customers, not making any sense and ultimately not being usable. The tools are not being usable. Just for an example, the engineer would have built an integration with Salesforce, and another person would have built an integration with Amplitude. But the data in Salesforce is not the same data in Amplitude, which means your product manager is talking a different language and you looking at a different data and making different decisions than your sales team who are actually chasing different customers and different customer wants, which they have logged in the CRM tool. And very quickly, once you have 20, 30, 40 different tools across your stack, from marketing, from marketing to product to sales to customer success and so on, every tool ends up having a different view of your customer and thereby impacting your company adversely when it comes to making good decisions. So not having a single view of customer happens to be the second most common challenge across all these companies who are trying to create a foundation of good data. The third challenge is data becomes almost impossible to access. It almost becomes like trekking an Everest, where someone who is not fit is simply going to give up. So why is this, why is this a challenge? The data is present in various different systems, but ultimately your database happens to be the place where most of your data is sitting at, and that means you need to be either technically savvy like an engineer or an analyst to be able to query this data, or constantly beg your engineers or analysts for answers, and they don't know whether they should help you, which means there's a backlog of requests from everyone inside your org asking for data, or they should focus on solving the core customer problem, like building your product or improving your product. So when data becomes almost impossible to access, what do people do? They simply give up. And this prevents innovation, right? Your engineers on the one side are just putting all the fires by fixing your ETL pipeline, by fixing these integrations, by fixing all these bad data problems, while you, on the other hand, are nowhere close to having access to good data, and you're not able to innovate. You're using your instincts. You're looking at competitors. What are they building? You're just simply listening to your customers instead of looking at what they're actually performing on your website, or even worse, just like taking decisions on your gut or your instinct sometimes when that shouldn't be the case. And this is like one of my favorite chart originally quoted by Brian Balfour, who runs Reforge, the growth marketing school, and he talks about this data wheel of death, the data wheel of death that gets created in companies who don't have access to good data is when data is constantly not maintained, when data isn't constantly maintained, because your engineers are busy and they're focusing on a bunch of different things, then data becomes irrelevant because data is not living and breathing anymore. Or data is old, or data is stale, or data is incomplete, or data is fragmented. When that's the case, then data becomes irrelevant. And then people stop trusting data. People stop trusting data. They don't know whether this data is true, whether they don't know this data is accurate. And then they end up using the data less, right? They start making bad decisions, or they just simply stop logging into analytics tools, or they stop looking at reports. When that's the case, then they're not actually asking your analysts and engineers to get data quality improved because they're stopped using data. They have given up on data. There's no forcing function inside your company to maintain the data. And that reinforces the fact that data is not even more not constantly maintained. And then data is becoming even more relevant and irrelevant. People have completely given up trust on data, and data is just like a mess, and people use there's no data driven innovation anymore. How do you really avoid this data wheel of death? Because this is scary and dangerous. From having bad data, you have gone to a place where you have no data. Data is just like a liability, not an asset anymore. So how do you avoid this wheel of death? So I want to touch upon like few things that have really worked very well for us in order to solve these problems, these data issues, and thereby like drive innovation really quickly. And these are like three simple focus areas which you could leverage like from tomorrow actually, and start taking baby steps towards that, and use tools like Segment or any other customer data quality platforms to fix these bad data problems at your org. The first one happens to be data quality. Investing in data quality is so important. Making sure that the data you collect is good, verified, vetted, consistent, and very well documented. In many cases, data is not being documented. There's no shared definition and understanding when it comes to what's logged in user for that matter, right? So investing in data quality is so important. Second thing, investing in data literacy. How do you make sure that everyone inside the org is a data literate? Someone who can look at data, someone who can understand data, someone who can make sense out of data, someone who can actually query the data and derive meaningful insights out of that data. Not just like looking at data at a report is important. Like someone who can like fork that report, play around with that report, and really like derive meaningful insights without requiring an analyst's help, without requiring manager's help is so important to make everyone a data literate. So by empowering people with quality data and making them data literate, you're able to create like a good foundation of data. And the last piece is making sure that this data is readily available and data is like being used everywhere. It's self-serviceable and put to good use is very important, because no matter whether you have good data and access to good data, if the data is not being put to a good use, then ultimately you're not, no one is gonna really like use data to make any decisions. It just becomes like a nice to have versus a must have thing. So let's dive a little deeper into what it really means to create a quality, improving your data quality score, or just like having like a good quality data, and what it means to like making sure that everyone is data literate, and what does it mean to like make sure that data is available and is being used. So the first step we would recommend every company is standardizing on a data plan, making sure that you have a shared understanding of customer data by documenting that data and creating a dictionary. Think of it as a dictionary of your data. Think of it like a Wikipedia inside your org for customer data. Many people don't have that. Many people just log in directly to databases and start querying and quickly realize, oh, what does this particular checkout ID mean? Is it a checkout ID inside Shopify, or is it a checkout ID in our database, or is it checkout ID on Stripe, right? So just creating a data plan and standardizing on it, and this is like a complete team effort. It takes a village to really create a data plan and a shared understanding of each and every data point. What does each and every data point mean? Where is it originating from? What's like the data type? Is it a string? Is it an integer? And where is this data being leveraged? What tools is this data being connected to, or is being sent to? Is so important to create a high quality uh, understanding of customer data. And the second thing is providing ongoing data training and making this data readily available using a variety of do-it-yourself platforms, so that the quality data that you have just created is available at fingertips to anyone inside the org who want to query, develop an understanding of customer, derive meaningful insights, and take better decisions. At Segment, for example, we use a bunch of different tools, a combination of Segment plus Looker, or a Mixpanel or an Amplitude plus Mode, to be able to provide uh, a do-it-yourself access to everyone inside the org who want to learn more about our customers, who are customers, to answer questions, even simple questions like how many customers do we have, how many of them are signing up every day, how are they using Segment, what products are, what product features are being used, or what product features are not being used, and etc and etc. And this really like just empowers even a designer to be able to design user experiences based on their understanding of how customers are using the are interacting with the product. And it's not just about all these tools, it's also about providing these trainings and learning sessions and some fun exercises and assignments to every employee, especially the non-tech folks, especially the people who are on the marketing and sales and the customer success end, who are not regularly interacting with engineers, because you want to unblock your engineers, you want to unblock your non-technical audience by freeing up your engineers at the same time. And the best way we have realized to make this happen is providing these data training sessions right at the time of onboarding. Right at the time of onboarding, you're getting access to all these tools and training sessions, and every quarter we are brushing up their skills by showcasing new, be it the new capabilities inside the tool, or advanced topics like not just like querying data, but how do you analyze data and how do you derive meaningful insights out of it and stuff. So at Segment, we have things like analyst, analyst hours, where we can block time with analysts and go through a detailed report and get their opinion and understand the tools better and stuff like that. So having high quality data logged somewhere, documented, very well documented, and then like leveraging that data using variety of do-it-yourself BI tools and analytics platforms is so important to empower everyone inside your org to make meaningful decisions. And the last thing is putting data to good use. There's no value in all this great data and tools if you're not ultimately using data to make any decisions. And how do you do that? One thing that has been super helpful for us at Segment is deliberately using data while setting your goals. Instead of setting a very vague objective, which is much more, where there's no data involved in measuring success, we took an approach where we would use data and data in our day-to-day goal setting so that we are regularly referencing data and using really data to uh, do what we are doing every day and ultimately impact customers and revenue. So just to give you an example, I'm a product manager here on the growth team, and my goal ultimately is to make every customer who signs up for Segment successful. And success means they're using Segment, they're potentially paying for our product, and our company is seeing revenues, and so on and so forth. And for us to be able to do that, we had to build a great first time user experience journey, a great first time user onboarding journey that helps any user who signs up for Segment, be it a noob or be it an advanced user, to be able to understand Segment quickly, use Segment quickly to achieve their business outcomes. And when we were asking ourselves, what does the success criteria really look like? Sure, helping customers is a great objective, but that can't be a goal. How do you really, measure whether you are really meaningfully impacting both customers and revenue for Segment? We looked at the data. We went to our, Looker, and we ran a bunch of analysis to figure out and realize this interesting data point that when a customer signs up for Segment and they turn on at least two new integrations, which means they have set up a source, data is flowing into Segment, they turn on two new integrations, and data is flowing into all these two new tools, then they are far more likely to stay with Segment, retain with Segment, potentially become a paying customer, just be happy using Segment and just use Segment to the fullest, and just use Segment as an active user and a paying customer, and ultimately and drive revenues for us. And we realized that that's the habit moment which we should be optimizing for, which is helping every customer get to two integrations within their first week of sign up or within their first 2 weeks of sign up. And what we have done is we have realized that this is going to be our goal, and we have embedded this data point into our goal setting. So in our annual planning, we defined our Q1, our first quarter goal, to improve the sign up to habit movement conversion by 10%, just taking a baby step. By doing so, we defined like a hypothesis, built and shipped like a new onboarding flow, went back to our dashboard, see whether this number is improving. And then we realized we had a bunch of learnings. And then we increased the goal to 20%, and so on and so forth. So this is like a one example of embedding data into your goal setting so that you're actively using data to not just like plan stuff, but also in your day-to-day, when you're building products, when you're trying to understand customer problems, when you ship something and see impact of that, you're ultimately like using data to guide your growth. So that's those are like three ways you could potentially overcome the most common challenges, and really be like an organization that is using data to innovate at scale. So just wrapping up the talk, using data to innovate at scale is, the next generation companies are all customer driven companies and data driven companies, and If you want to be one of those, it's it's so important for you to firstly create a very create a single view of your customer by connecting your website, mobile, server, cloud into a platform like Segment or a CDP, and create like a deep understanding of a single view of your customer, and then leverage the data across all your different tools, uh, be it your marketing tools, analytics tools, advertising tools, your data warehouse, and everywhere, to ultimately achieve your use cases and drive business growth. I hope you found this talk useful, and I hope you'll go back to your offices and be more data driven and use some of these learnings and tips to solve some of your data problems. Thank you so much.